Good morning, everybody. It's Wednesday, the 13th of January, and we are going to continue with our non-chronological report on pirates. How are you all doing? Today, boys and girls, we are going to look at the next subheading and the next subheading and the next paragraph. And today we're going to focus on chunks of writing using verbs. So we're going to use some action words, some verbs in our sentences. That's going to be the first two chunks of writing. And in our last chunk, we're going to use a conjunction. We're going to start the sentence with the word if. Now let's get going. What's our first subheading going to be? Today it's all about on board a ship, but work on board a ship. Pirate jobs. You could give the subheading pirate jobs. Have a look at the information page that I've got, which I think is one of the books that I've added onto the files. This is all about pirate jobs aboard a ship. Their subheading is captain or powder monkey. So they've given it as a question. You might like to think about putting your subheading as a question as well. Have you got any research that you found out about a pirate job? If you do, put it into your writing today. You might even put it into your writing as a question, a bit like our subheading. First of all, let's see how we are going to use our verbs in our first sentence. So our first word collection is going to be the sort of verbs that the pirates had to do their job. So, steering the ship, loading the cannons, climbing the mast, scrubbing the decks, inspecting the ship, cleaning the equipment, dropping the anchor, reading the map, leashing the sails, digging for treasure, raising the flags. There are quite a few verbs that I've put there which you can use in your writing. You might have some jobs of your own that you want to write about, but what verb would you use to make sure that you are describing what the pirate's doing? So if we look at our information page here, we've got someone cooking, haven't we? So you might use the verb cooking or making. Notice as well that all the verbs I'm using today all end with the suffix ing. If you are using a word that ends in the suffix ing, check your spelling, because sometimes if you change the word into an ing word, for example, make becomes making, so making the soup, you would drop the E before you add the ing. Another thing to look out for today in your writing. Have a look now and think about which of the jobs you want to include in this first chunk of writing. All pirates were expected to work. All pirates were expected to work very hard. How are you going to introduce that to your reader? I have, every pirate had daily duties. You could use that sentence, or you might want to say, pirates didn't have an easy life. Or you might like to say, pirates had lots of work to do, day and night. You could look at the information book and see how they start their chapters on work that pirates had to do or jobs that pirates had to do. And maybe you can magpie some of those ideas. When you've thought about your subheading and then you've got your opening sentence, let's have a look at what we can do to introduce the jobs. You could make a list of 3 jobs, never more than 3. In your piece of writing, in this chunk of writing. Or you might like to add more detail. You might want to say that they were climbing the masts, but you might want to say how much of a dangerous job it was to climb the masts, because they didn't have any harnesses, did they? They would have to climb up bare hands to make sure that the sails were set properly in strong winds. That's deepening the moment. You could give me more information about that job. It might be something you found out in your research about a pirate's duty that you want to add in this part of the writing. You decide. So I have every pirate had daily duties. Some were enjoyable, like fixing the mast or reading the map or digging for treasure. Now that sounds like a good job. Some were enjoyable, such as fixing the sails or climbing the rigging. Pause the video, think about which jobs you're going to write about in this chunk of writing. Not all jobs were fun, and that's what we're going to look at in the second chunk. How did you get on? What jobs did you write about in this part of the writing? Let's look at the second chunk. Our second chunk, we're going to continue to talk about the jobs, but this time we're going to look at the jobs which weren't so pleasant. We could even talk about how some of those jobs were so horrific that we wouldn't want to do them ourselves. So you could end with a question. Would you want to do a job like that? Can you imagine what it must have been like? That's up to you. Let's look at what I have here for the horrible jobs on board. Punishing the crew. Well, that couldn't have been a fun job. It wouldn't have made you very popular. Scrubbing the decks. Cleaning up vomit. Ugh, that's cleaning up sick. Maybe they were at sea quite a lot. That doesn't mean to say they didn't get seasick. Splatting the rats. We've already talked about the fact there were lots of rats on board. Someone must have had the job of getting rid of them. Squeezing boils, not too sure about that one, and emptying the toilet bucket. That must have been a foul job for anyone to do. But somebody had to do it. Which are the horrible jobs are you going to write about in this part of your writing? I have, other jobs were horrible. You might use another word for horrible, nasty, disgusting. No one would want to do them. Such as squeezing boils or emptying the toilet bucket. Choose which ones you want to write about. Maybe you want to deepen the moment. Address the reader directly. Ask them if they would want to do a revolting job like that. Pause the video, write your sentence. How did you get on? Which disgusting jobs did you choose to write about? So, let's go on to our last chunk of writing. And we're going to end our chunks of writing today with the punishments that would have happened if you didn't do the tasks that you were given. Yes, pirates were given very gruesome punishments if you didn't do your job. Here is a piece of writing which has been put into the shared files. You might find it there, and it's all about pirate punishments. If you didn't do your job, or if you broke the rules, you would be flogged. Yes, some of them had to be whipped. And then there was keel hauling. This is something we talked about in class, some of us. The victim was dragged under the ship from one side to the other. They might have drowned, or they might die later from all the cuts from the sharp barnacles from under the boat. They're those things that attach themselves underneath, and they are very sharp. They were tied to the masts, or they were marooned on a desert island. There were many punishments that pirates had, and we're going to find out, and we're going to write about for our reader what would happen if you did not do the job. So, we're using the word if. If pirates didn't work hard, they could be whipped. That's my example. You could just write a simple sentence, just like that one. If pirates didn't work hard, they would be keel hauled or marooned on a desert island. If pirates didn't do their job, they would be punished by... This is where you have to decide, what do you want to write about? Which punishment will you choose to describe? Have a look at the previous page, because it does give a bit of detail about the punishments, or you might have found out in your own research about some of the nasty punishments that the pirates were given. Think about it. Which one will you choose? Start your sentence with the conjunction if pirates didn't. Okay? Then I want you to read your writing back. Check those spellings with the key words on the initiate sheet. Remember to check your capital letters, full stops and your punctuation. And then submit your work for me to read. and for Miss Golding to read. I'll see you soon, everybody. Goodbye.